You ever watch a music production video and right when it starts to get interesting, the producer just cuts to the final result and you're left thinking, wait, what did he actually do there? Was it sound design? Was it automation? Was it some weird hack I didn't know about? And I totally get it. I felt that too, even in my own videos. And so this time I really want to switch it up and just show you my entire process of how I produce music. You'll see every weird technique I use, including this one, and even this one. And by the end, you'll know exactly how I go from a completely empty project to a very solid and professional sounding drop idea that sounds like this. So whether you're an intermediate producer, an advanced producer, or even a beginner producer, I promise you by the end of this video, you're going to walk away with a few gems that you can use in your own music and take it to the next level. Let's get into it. So as I mentioned, this video is just gonna be minimally edited, just me making music, kind of the side of the videos that you usually don't see published on the channel. So let's get into it. First thing we want to do, of course, is get a quick idea down. So I'll get some drums. Okay, we'll choose this kick for now. I'm not sure if it'll work, but we'll just hear it in the context of the mix and everything whenever we add more stuff, and then we can decide from there. And then let's get a snare. There's this one AU5 snare that I really like. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, this one right here. Now let's switch this BPM to maybe 150. We can do some weird melodic dubstep, color bass type stuff. That's what I'm feeling right now. And let's copy this a few times. Cool. So really basic stuff. Let's just really quickly get some hi-hats in here for some rhythm. So actually what I'll do is get a drum rack because I want to be able to use multiple samples here. And then we can drag those samples into the rack and just make a MIDI clip from there. So I'll drag in a bunch of hi-hats. And that should be good. Let's make a MIDI clip and draw on some hi-hat pattern. So this is like the hardest part, just finding some random hi-hat pattern that you can actually use. We'll just keep it simple for now. We can add more complex rhythms and stuff to it later. I just want to get the ideas down. So let's go into the sound design part. Let's get Serum 2, drag it onto the MIDI clip, and do some weird stuff here. So I'm going to take the saw wave, or I'll take a sine wave actually, and we can just make some simple bass real quick. We might resample it or whatever and do some weird stuff. So I have the first oscillator, just completely normal. And then the second one is an octave up, maybe 2 octaves up with a +7 semitones. And we can adjust this level to however we want the tone to be. Let's add some noise. I'm just getting everything set up and then add some distortion. See how this sounds. Okay. Could definitely use a little bit more of a higher octave here. Now let's take envelope 2 and apply it to the coarse pitch of both of these oscillators. So that way it kind of punches down. We can create this spike shape on the envelope. Okay, next thing, let's get sync and apply that same thing to the envelope 2. Because I really want that punchy sound, right? Kind of play around with this. So I've heard that PD is actually the FM on Serum 1. That's what I've heard at least. I'm not sure how true that is. Let's try it here as well. Okay, let's draw on a quick pattern. Get a MIDI clip. And I like to make my basses just slightly off. Like I said, this is definitely not the final result. We'll do some weird resampling and whatnot. So, okay, good start. Let's give it a little bit more distortion. Put a compressor on it, on multibands. And give it some type of filter or something for some movement. So I'll take LFO 1, apply it to the cutoff of this high notch filter. Take the frequency, maybe modulate that back and make some sort of spike again. So I don't like the more classic dubstep bass type of sound that it's giving right now. I'm going to distort it less, and we can kind of play around with the wavetables. Let's see what filters we can add to make this a little bit more unique. Maybe a diffuser. I think this smears frequencies over time, kind of in a way that disperser does, like kilohertz disperser. Okay, let's see what else we can do this. So what if we take a new oscillator and just drag in some like random glitch sample or something into the spectral mode and see what kind of texture that we can add through that. Maybe this one, spectral. I just want that like top end texture, so we can kind of get rid of that sub info down here. And just continue swapping out the sample until we get something. So that's kind of nice. I like that texture. Let's apply the filter and create something that looks like this, almost like a phaser in a way with these spikes here. And then we can apply it to the same spiky LFO, the cutoff. Or better yet, let's do it on its own LFO, just so we have a little bit more control over it if we need. And I'll modulate the level. I'm just experimenting, honestly, just playing around. So I actually like this, but it has no top end, to be honest, so. Oh wait, it's because the scan was below 100. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so I accidentally just replaced the wavetable here. Maybe that's a good thing. Kind of a happy accident there. Okay, this is starting to sound really cool. See, it's like these random accidents that you just do, and it ends up sounding cool. So I'll make the LFO here kind of clip, if that makes sense. Like have this spike and then spike after it. And we can shape envelope 1, the amplitude, just so we can get more of a sharp sound. In fact, I want to do this with a filter or an equalizer instead, because this needs to be cleaned up a little bit more. So I'll take the equalizer, I'll apply LFO 1 to the frequency. That's cool. So let's see what we can do. I'm just going to make a ton of random variations of the sound and then just render it out and see what we can do from there. Chop it up, etc. Let's just render this out. Here, I'll make a duplicate. Let's freeze and flatten it. Bounce track in place. Yeah, there we go. Let's see what we can do with this here. So now we can begin processing it with a bunch of stuff. Get an EQ on here. Clean it up a little bit. This little clicky mechanical-ish noise right here is cool. We could use this as like a rhythm type of thing for the drop, kind of tie in the rhythm a little bit. I'll save that because if we do a little template here. Yeah, it's cool. Okay, where do we go from here? Let's continue processing this, add an OTT on top of it, bring up the character. I'm gonna get a soothe on this. Yeah, it's mainly just this like 4.5K hertz right here that I want to soothe. And then let's apply a snap heap. Why not? I'm just experimenting. Let's do a frequency shifter. 45 hertz or negative 45 hertz, just kind of, it keeps the tone or the note of it, but it shifts the tone of it. Like it's still the same note, if that makes sense. What about a Combs filter? Nah, maybe a ladder. No. Reverser. A tape stop would be cool. If we just automated that, but maybe whenever we have the final version of the sound. Let's do Orman filter. You know what? What if we apply a chroma to this? Make it melodic. This is an F sharp, so I'll put it in F sharp minor. No. So we could go in the color base route. Let's apply some dispersers to this to smear the frequencies once again. Maybe duplicate that a few times. I just don't like how buzzy the sound is, so I kind of want to clean that up. What if we automate this slow pass? Let's just try that. I'm a little bit new to Ableton, so if there's better ways to do things, then I'm probably not aware. Like, that's starting to sound a little bit more of what I want. What if we apply this before the chroma, dispersers, etc.? We get this colorful stab. Then we can automate the EQ up for these. Cool. I'm just gonna resample that, commit to it, why not? OTT this again. And what about an erosion? It kind of has this I, like oi type of sound, almost a vowel. You can barely hear that. So here's the thing, I'm kind of leaning in like a mid-tempo type of direction now. I'm hearing this pattern in my head, but I can't tell if it's shiny object syndrome or if it's just me actually wanting to do another cool idea. So we can roll with this dubstep pattern for just a little bit longer, and if it's still not working out, then we can change it up. Let's see what else we can do. I think I'm happy with this sound for now. We could probably go ahead and make another layer just to try something out. And then from there, since we've done some sound design, let's structure out the drop a little bit more. We could have done this in a completely different session, all the sound design stuff, but that's okay. Let's see. So I want something less buzzy, more clean. We can just probably go with... Okay, now that I hear this, I have a vision for it. I know this is more buzzy sounding, and I just said I didn't want to do that, but just bear with me. So I'm gonna add some unison to this, detune it, take down the random phase. It gives it that lasery texture. That's cool. Let's add some noise to this. Add a sub to it. Distort these together. Okay. This is bothering me a little bit. It doesn't sound as clean as it should. Try and find something else. Okay, we'll do this one. And I'm going to take LFO1, apply it to the level of oscillators, or the oscillators, the noise oscillator, and the sub oscillator. And just make some random freaking pattern here. Something like that. Make it slower. And let's make this note longer so we can hear the whole pattern on the LFO. Cool. Let's add a high notch filter to this. I want to automate it backwards though. It's kind of cool. A little bit too vowely. This is a little bit too acid sounding. I don't know, let's just try a diffuser, for example. Maybe a low pass as well. Or maybe we do that after we process it. So let's go back here, add a compressor to take up the character of it. Let's add a filter, and we're gonna make it a combs filter because I want a more, not metallic sounds, but this type of sound. Hold up. Make this like a ramp. That's cool. Or we could try reverb. Very like smeary, messy. Let's get a EQ on this, like I said, and do a low pass and then clean this up. Okay. I like the reverb filter on like 30% mix, just adding that little bit of texture, that smearing texture. That's cool. Now, let's do a hyper dimension. Give it some width. Okay, nice. So I'll duplicate this and let's bounce this one. Yeah, let's bounce it. All right. Cool. I want to go into a more mid-tempo direction. I'm just gonna do it. So let's just variate these drums here. Let's make them like a 4 on the floor type of pattern and then make this BPM, 100 beats per minute. Now we can readjust all of this stuff. Okay, that's dope. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. I'm hearing it. I hear it in my head. This is good. This is good. Okay, I'm hearing a little rhythm there, little flow. I'll drag all of this stuff over here just so we have it for later. I kind of want to open the drop up with some like super melodic arp sound or synth or something like that. And then it drops with this very heavy bass, right? So let me replace the drums really quickly just because I'm not super fond of it for this mid-tempo genre that we switched into because I have shiny object syndrome. Let me find better drums. I do like this snare a little bit. I'm not sure if it's perfect for the track that I want to make. So we'll save it for later. I'll just have it muted. And then let's get a better clap. Okay, that's the one I was looking for. Let's drag that in. Let's make it a little bit before the actual kick because this is a pre-shifted style clap, which means it comes a little bit before the kick, right? To give it texture. It sounds really cool. All right, and I'll duplicate the drums over one more time just so we have some space to work with because I want to add a space, like I said, right in the beginning of the drop where it opens up with some beautiful chord progression or lead or something, and then it hits you with that heavy drop. So this should be enough. So let me move this over and just try and listen for the rhythm that's hidden within these drums, right? Okay, got it. Let me map it out with these little bass hits here. So I want this to be a little triplet. And then repeat. And then a little glitch right here, glitch fill. Cool. I want this first hit to be this sound. I think that's really cool. Now I'm hearing a different rhythm. See, I have such shiny object syndrome when it comes to music production, and it's pretty easy for me to focus on stuff once I get it down, once I have the full idea ready. But beforehand, I just have all these like ideas just snapping at me, and it's really hard to stick with one. Because now I'm hearing a rhythm that goes kind of like this, more simple. Okay, I think this might catch the listeners' attention. And then if not, I'll keep this original rhythm that I had over here just in case. So you can tell like when I'm doing all the sound design and stuff and arranging it and doing the production all in one project, I'm super all over the place. That's just how it goes for me. Maybe it's a little different for you, and that's okay. So I want to process this bass a little bit more, get a disperser. Another OTT. Actually, no, it's fine. Cool. Now let's structure out the drop a little bit more. I'm gonna add a respace at the very first section, right? Just super simple Detune saw with the filter, just to get the idea down. I don't want to forget it. And I want the initial chord progression that opens up the drop to be So let me think of what we can do next, because we have the initial rhythm down, we have the structure roughly, we have some of the sound design, and so now it's a matter of like logically looking at it. What should we do next? I think it's time we do a little bit more sound design. We layer the bass up, we get more production in there, right? More layers. That way it can sound more full. So focusing on this rhythm, I'm just gonna add like some random samples or something. Let's get a Sultan. I know there's this harmonics, useful harmonic sample by Sultan. Yeah, this one right here. We could probably mess with this a little bit. Maybe put it in a spectral sampler. That's kind of cool. It gives it some texture. I bet texture is one of the #1 words that I use in my videos. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's try this one now. Okay, now I want a nice bass layer here. Just like classic saw pluck bass layer. Maybe there's a preset I like. I don't want to use too many presets in this video, but it's like if you hear something and you remember a specific preset, it's like might as well use it, you know? I have no problem with that. Plus, we're gonna try and do most of the sound design originally in this video. Okay. I'm just going to design it myself. I'll take a Detune saw, add a filter to it, modulate or change this envelope here, apply the envelope to the filter. I want this to have such a specific texture to it. Let's see if I can replicate it. So I have a notch filter, just because why not? I know it sounds a little hollow, but that's kind of the sound I'm going for. Let's get some noise on here. A little less distortion because I want this to sound less buzzy. And what if we take the post filter and automate this? Maybe a phaser. Yeah, okay, that's kind of what I'm going for. Just like this super hollow type of plucky bass. Let's see what we can do to give this a better texture. Maybe search through some of the Serum 2 wavetables. And what if we enable oscillator B, but only use this for FM, or I guess PD is what you call it now. At least that's what it was for Serum 1. Interesting. Yeah, I want it to have that punch. Okay, that's getting closer for sure. Maybe just like a slight touch of reverb, but at the lowest size. Maybe the nitrous setting. That's kind of cool. And then what if we add a saw layer again? And then going back to it one more time, let's add some downsampling. Just for a little bit crush sound. Maybe put it at the top of the chain. Make this 50% mix. All right, start layering this bass up. So I'm gonna make a bass group, melodic bass group. Let's somehow add some texture to these basses once again. So we could probably get some type of bass glitch or something. So this effect might be cool if we just cut it up and then chop it. Nice, that'll add some top end texture to it. Okay, so I want to make some type of zap sound effect or like a laser. So I'll open Serum 2. Let's get a sine wave and let me make this bigger. There we go. Then we'll take envelope 2 and make it a spike. And of course, apply this to the coarse pitch and make it super intense. Cool. And then we can shift the wavetable, play around with it. Maybe add some distortion and an EQ. And a diffuser. Cool, let's layer that in. Then we can go ahead and EQ it to fit in. So I do want it to sound less video gamey in a way. Just kind of playing around with this. Now what I want to do is vary the tone of this main bass hit right here, because it does get a little bit boring after like 4 repetitions. I'm going to grab a frequency shifter and apply that to the main bass. And then we can apply chroma once again after it, just so we can lock in that melodic texture. See, this is really cool. So now we can shift the tone of the bass around while still keeping it in key. Or better yet, what if we use snap heap? And I know Nasco has this specific N color thing, and it's a slightly different tone than chroma, so we could try that out as well. Yeah, that sounds the best right there. And now all we have to do is automate the course on the shifter here, just so we can get different tones for each bass hit. Alright, so this is definitely lacking sub. Let's get another Serum and just make a simple sub preset real quick. So I'll take the sine wave, or let's do the triangle wave actually. Take envelope 2 again, apply it to the course pitch so we can give it some punch. Adjust it to however you want. Maybe give it a little bit of noise as well as some distortion. And then we can put an EQ after it. Okay, cool. I want some more lasery texture on this. So let's just like pitch this in key D sharp, E, F, F sharp. And maybe apply a shifter to this as well, just so it's not the same every single time. There's this little glitchy part here that's being caused by all the effects we put on it as well as the OTT. So might as well use this somehow. It's kind of cool. Oh, I like the lasery sound that this gives it. If we take the shifter and make it slide down like that. Now let's take that other bass patch that we had from before and paste it into the same effects as this one, just to see what it sounds like. Yeah, I definitely want to duplicate that. I'll delete the first bass patch and we'll use just the second one here with the same exact effects. What if we use pitch map? Let's try that. That's kind of cool. So this time, I don't know, let's get Vital, mix it up a little bit. I mean, they're kind of the same plugin, but it's okay. The reason I wanted to use this is for the Vital Sine, which I think is cool. Then we can place a bunch of random notes just for the experiment. Just trust the process. Make these more random. Oh, my ears. My ears hurt so bad. Okay, I know this sounds so weird, but just trust me. We're gonna turn it into something good. Maybe a little bit less notes. I want it to be less chaotic. Okay, let's see. Envelope 2 on the pitch. Okay, I hear it. I see the vision. We're getting somewhere. So I'll automate this decay right here. Make it go up and down. You hear that? I can hear something in there. It's like you're a sculptor. You see this big piece of stone and you have your chisel and you have to bring out what's in the stone, right? So we got this weird sounds. Now, how do we make it better? First of all, I'm going to duplicate this, mute this version, and then render this out. Bounce it in place. So I'll take this section right here and let's apply a shifter to it. See, that's already getting somewhere. All we did was just apply a shifter to it and decrease the coarse on it, right? Maybe an EQ, because there is some very harsh high frequencies up here. I kind of like some of the low end information. I'll keep this for now. And let's try and apply a pitch map to it. That's cool, makes it melodic. Then let's take an OTT and maybe apply this after the pitch map to take up the character of it. Okay, hold up. We can use this as a texture for the basses up here. Yeah, okay, that's a perfect idea. Let's do that. I'll take this, I'm gonna put it in the basses group and just chop this up. So we can do something like this. And it gives it that shimmery type of texture, right? That's so sick. And maybe we automate some of the shifter to make it different for every hit once again. That's cool. I'll just render this out, commit to the audio, why not? Nice, now we have that extra little detail there. Let's go back to this original weird sound that we made. And I want to add a little bit of Portamento to it. And then make this more in sync with the project, so maybe quarter beats. So I have a vision for this that I want. I want it to alternate between octaves, so one low octave and then one high octave. Because we're going to make some crazy glitch sound out of this probably. Or not, wherever it takes us, to be honest. Okay, that's good enough for me. Let's render this one out. Cool. Once again, OTT and a shifter, of course. Maybe duplicate the shifter and make it a ring mod. And then add a little bit of redux to it. And automate the rate of this redux to be on only specific hits like this one. And give it a little bit of delay. And then finally, to top it all off, some pitch map. So now we have this weird glitchy fill that leads into the second part of the drop, which will tie it all together. Now let's apply some Valhalla reverb to this entire group. I'm going to set it to now because I want this reverb to be very bright. Let's increase the high cut, increase the low cut a little bit, and automate the mix. We can use this mix to create a reverb sweep effect. So the reverb's just going to sweep up in between these gaps, very subtly. All right, now I want some classic cyberpunk bass. So I did make a preset for this a long time ago. Let me try and find it. Or honestly, we could just make one. We'll use the acid ladder filter. Some weird bass sequence. That's cool. Let's add a phaser. Now we need to find a way to tie the first section of the drop with these very melodic, shiny basses with the second part with this more cyberpunk style bass. So let's do that. Maybe we can take a few of these samples and paste them over here in the rhythm with a new bass. Yeah, that helps a little bit. Maybe this one as well. We can take a specific section of this. Yeah, that's really cool. Then I'm gonna automate this shifter to be faster. Let's give this bass a little notch. And then some distortion. I'm gonna change up this rhythm a little bit. And not make it just quarter notes spamming the entire time. I'm just looking through some samples that we could possibly use. I'll be honest, I use a ton of samples in my music, and that's only whenever I've done my sound design, I've done most of the work, and I only need that extra layer or sound to add that texture, that color to it, right? Just very small details. Let's automate this mix on the reverb again. I think it's a little bit too loud in this first bass. Let's level this out. Also, I don't know if we can hear, but it's super rainy outside, so that kind of inspires me to add some rain sound effects in maybe the intro of the track. All right, let's move on with this. So I'm chopping up this glitch sound we made from those random notes earlier and just adding them into the second part of the drop. We can do some variable bass sequences here. Maybe add this bass plug here. All right, let's arrange this out a little bit more. Get rid of these patterns over here. Clean this up. Okay, little happy accident. I accidentally misplaced this bass right here. It's supposed to be in this position, but I moved it 1/4 beat off, and I kind of like how it sounds. Kind of gives it a nice flow, as well as some variation from the first part. Okay, so it's 1:30 a.m. I rarely stay up this late producing, but it just happens. I got inspired. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to come back to this. We'll finish it up and get it sounding more professional, right? All right, so we're back. It's morning now. And I'm not going to lie, during my sleep, like I was half asleep at this time, right before I woke up, I started getting all these weird visions and like hearing things of what I want to implement into this track. So I'm super inspired right now. I did end up adding a few of them already just because like I wanted to get the idea down. So sorry for not recording that. I just had to get it down. So the first thing is this lead right here. Just this weird distorted lead. So what's happening here is I have this triangle wave and I'm automating the sync on it like this to kind of change the shape of it over time. There's also some noise on it. And if we go to the effects, there's a ton of reverb, some hyperdimension, a lot of distortion. And this distortion gets turned up over time to create this warped effect. Then we have an equalizer cutting out the lows, and then a notch filter just kind of phasing back and forth. And then a notch filter just kind of moving back and forth just for the effect. I thought it sounded cool. And then we have this thing here. So this is just me playing a bunch of random notes going downwards on a Serum pluck or something like that. It's just a random preset. So this is what it sounds like before the effects. It's like a bunch of random notes. I added an EQ to cut out a lot of the lows, a pitch map, and then a lossy. And I believe this plugin is kind of like a spectral gate in a way, but it just makes your sound lossy, like an old MP3, right? It's pretty cool. So mainly just those ambient elements to fill up the first section of the drop, but we have a ton more work to do here. So what I'm going to do is open FL Studio just because I want to experiment with sound design there. Maybe also an empty Ableton project. We'll do some sound design, we'll export it, drag it into this project, and then go from there. Let's do it. All right, we're in FL Studio. First thing I want to do is use a Quanta and take some random texture loop. I was hearing this in my half sleep dream. I want some really weird bass loop. So maybe this one for now. Let's turn down the level of this oscillator. I don't want it to be playing. And let's increase the filter. Maybe place a note here. Here we go. So we're doing some crazy granular synthesis now. We can go ahead and process this just to bring up the character of it. Let's do something else. Maybe a frequency shifter. Yeah, so I'm gonna extend this note, make it super long, take the frequency shifter, and just like automate it at some random points. All right, cool. From here, let's go back to the quanta and just automate the position of this. Okay, now that we have this, we can continue messing with this. So maybe we apply another pitch map. Maybe we can do F sharp pentatonic minor. Okay, that's cool. Now let's take a Valhalla shimmer and apply this on like maybe 75% mix. Put this to single reverse and put up the size a little bit. Maybe adjust it. I'll consolidate this as well. Now we have this melodic glitchy thing. Next thing I heard in my sleep is this weird arpeggiating. I don't know how to describe it. Let me just make it. So we'll take a pluck from Serum. I actually want it to be more of an organic type of pluck. So let me just look in these presets. I mean, this could work. Let's make some random pattern out of it. What I like to do is go to the wrench and then go to randomize. Then we can select F sharp. We'll do pentatonic minor again just to be safe here. And let's set this to the BPM of our Ableton project, which was 100. All right, cool. Let's give this some Portamento over here so the notes blend into each other. Maybe change some of the octaves of these notes. Let's render this whole thing out again. Get an OTT on it, maybe some shaper box. Hold up, I chose F sharp. Yeah, minor pentatonic. Okay, it just sounds super happy, but it's okay. We can adjust it later on. Change the pitch of it. Maybe apply a frequency shifter. Maybe a vocoder. That's pretty cool. This could possibly be used. Maybe we can just EQ it really quickly. Alright, so I'll automate the shaper box to turn on at certain points and off at certain points, and then we can render this out. And then what if we throw this through a chroma just to make sure it's in key again? At least somewhat in key. Then I want to give this some texture, so we'll apply the plugin texture and kind of adjust these settings to be more sharp. Okay, we can go with that for now. It's so weird. I'm not even sure how we're going to implement this into the project, but we have it now, and we could probably chop it up or do something to it later. Okay, now what I want to do is open a Slice X, and we're gonna put like an entire song or entire sample in here and just like chop it up and do something weird. We could take All in Motion by Young Fazzo and drag it in here. Then I'm gonna auto slice it, medium auto slicing, and we have all these little slices now. And this is gonna be fun to play around with. So let's just chop up some weird rhythm. In fact, these slices are a little bit too short, so I'm gonna go back to auto slice, and then we can do maybe medium grid slicing. Let's try that. And we can just do some pattern. Okay. So this is like the weirdest thing ever, but it's okay. Let's render that out, and let's run this through. Maybe we can run this through like a snap heap. Let's see. Get OTT. I like some of these parts here, so I'm gonna chop them up and kind of make them individual. Like, it sounds so bad by itself, or it kind of sounds cool, I don't know. But at the same time, we're going to implement this somehow. Or we might not, maybe it doesn't fit, just experimenting. Alright, we'll go with that for now. Next, I'm going to get a Serum 2 pluck again. This is just gonna be a super basic sine pluck. There we go. Let's go ahead and make another random pattern. So I'll randomize it. Maybe we can make these more closer together. Put it an octave up. And then I'll give it another layer, but this layer is only going to be playing halfway through the pattern, so that we have some more variation, some options to go with. And this layer is going to be a square layer instead of a sine. So like right here, maybe even a saw wave instead. Okay, that works. Let's render this out. I just like committing to the audio. Let's put this in a quanta again. We'll place a note down and once again turn down this oscillator because we don't want this to be playing. And we can take up the level. I'll adjust the filter, turn up the output, and quanta is really quiet, so I'll turn up the volume here. This is really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'll put it on a mixer track and put Edison on it. So that way we can begin recording it. And from here, I'm gonna adjust the position of these grains, right? Maybe adjust the grain amount as well as the randomize. Crazy stuff. I'll keep playing it. Maybe do one with a ton of grains and a very random position. Okay, cool. That should be good. We have a ton of options here now. This is really cool. So they might sound weird at first, but if we combine this with the bass, so I'll get a very basic respace saw wave with the filter. And just play some notes in F sharp minor. This will tie it all together. So now we have this experimental granular pad, and we can continue processing this, adding effects to it, etc., and just make it better. So I'm going to apply Valhalla shimmer here, and we can turn up the mix a little bit, adjust the size. We'll just adjust it as we go, honestly. And I want a different texture to it. So I'll apply this plugin called Wormhole. It's by the same company that made pitch map, and we can just do some random preset, honestly, and then apply a pitch map after that. And the reason for this is because the Wormhole has a frequency shifter on it, and that's just gonna make it out of key, right? But whenever we apply the pitch map after it, then it's going to map it back into place. So let's see. And play with the random presets here. That's very beautiful. Get the bass under it. Okay, there's so many directions that we could take this in. I'm a bit overwhelmed, but it's okay. That's cool. Maybe I'll render a version of that over here. So let's consolidate that real quick. Okay, cool. We got all these nice random sounds. We can implement this into our project somehow. So I'm going to export everything here, and then we'll go back to Ableton. We might do a little bit more sound design just to add some more elements to it, and then we can go from there. All right, we're back in the original Ableton project file, and now we can just try and implement those samples that we made. It might work, it might not. Let's just see. So I definitely want to implement this guttural bass granular color sample somewhere to this one. Maybe it can be used for the first hit of this drop right here. And we can even try and reverse this so that it leads into the drop. Now let's try and take one of these ones here. Yeah, that's cool. I think it just needs to be a little bit louder, and then we can apply chroma to it because it does need to match the key a little bit more. It's a little bit too off. And now we can begin arranging the rest of the drop. Alright, next thing I hear is kind of an ambient lead whenever the drop first hits. What if we use operator this time? I've never used this before. So we'll draw in a little pattern here. Yeah, something like that. Let's apply a crystallizer to this. We can just play around with it. It's too video gamey. I want it to be more nonchalant. Let's give it some reverb maybe. I'm actually not a fan of how the operator's tone sounds, so that's okay. We can just use Serum 1. And then maybe do some processing to make this a little bit more unique. So I'll put a guitar amp on it. Why not? That's cool. It's a little bit harsh, so we can apply a soothe to it. Yeah, that's cool. And then maybe we add another layer to it as well. But this time a layer is going to be a square. And then we can apply LFO on the fine pitch and make this super fast. And adjust this LFO to look like this. And maybe some delay just to wash it out more. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this first bass line here, the very melodic basses. They're very shiny, they're super upfront, and I'm not sure if I want that, especially for the first drop. So what I might do, I might just take them over to another section of the track, maybe put them over here, because they're not really going with the flow that I want for the drop. But of course, we're not going to completely remove it. We might use bits and pieces of it throughout the drop. So I want this bass to be the main bass. So let me copy and paste the drums here. Okay, so before we move forward, I need to hear the full vision of where we're at now. Okay, cool. I'll copy these bass notes over here in this part of the drop, and we can continue layering this, adding more. And then let's escape the drop, because we've been in this 8-bar loop for a little bit. So I want to apply a disperser to this bass here. Same with this donk layer. And then I want to add a sub bass under all of this. So this one right here. And this can follow the same rhythm. And maybe make the punch a little bit more short, just because it's a little too long right now. Then I want some sort of fill on the last 2 bars of this drop. So we haven't really used this raw sample yet that we made at the very beginning of the project. So maybe there's room for it here. Maybe as like a little bass hit for the fill. I want to implement some of the texture layers that we had before for the melodic bass and put them here. We can kind of chop it up in the rhythm of the bass. Give it a little bit of variation over here. So I'm trying to think what other layers could we use for the main bass over here. Maybe this laser. Then we need this lead arpeggio thing that we made a few minutes ago. And it's gonna go right here, right before it plays into itself. And we can make this version an octave lower. So I want to make a group for the synth arpeggio and apply a crystallizer to it. And then automate that crystallizer to just slightly rise up as the drop goes on. That way we create some tension. So we could use the smooth crystals preset. And I'll just automate the mix. So it'll sound like this now. Just a little bit of glitter effect. Alright, so I'm hearing a little fill in this section, and the notes are going dun, something like that. Maybe we can synthesize it again. So first thing, let's just get the notes down. It's buh. Okay, I somehow just got that in my first try. And then G sharp. Give it a little bit of Portamento. Maybe some distortion. Put some reverb on it, and then we'll also get a crystallizer once again to just wash it out. And then an EQ to clean it up. Maybe we could put this up an octave. Okay, it's getting there. It still needs some adjustment. So I'll turn up the distortion, make this an octave down again. Maybe add sync to this saw wave. Add some noise and then give it a low pass. Okay, something like that. Nice. Now let's go back to that folder with all the sounds we made in FL Studio and add one of those here in place of this fill. So maybe this one. That's cool. Little reverse effect. I'll just EQ it a little bit. Nice. Now we need something to fill up this first section of the drop. We need to start layering this one because we have a ton of layers on the second section of the drop. So I'll load up the special plugin, of course, and we could just make a basic Detune saw, honestly, just for now. And then make some very euphoric chords. Nice. I'll put a G sharp here for the third. And then we'll do an F sharp here for that third. Maybe raise this up an octave. Add a little C sharp accent, which would be cool. And let me add another A up here, because I really want this half step movement that goes from the A to the G sharp. I think it sounds really nice. Maybe we add a B here. And then an E, just to give it some movement. Cool. That's decent. Now we can adjust the saw wave here, and we'll give it a low pass filter so it fades in. So we can automate this low pass. Okay, cool. I still want it to be more nonchalant. It's like, it's too much right now. So maybe we add another layer. I'm gonna detune this more as well. Yeah, I'll add another layer, and this layer can be a slightly different texture. So maybe I'll just use one of my presets that I made. Maybe this one. All right, so here's what we got so far. I really love how all of these synths, the chords, the little lead here, and then this falling down synth just blend together. It's almost messy in a way, but like in a nice way, if that makes sense. Cool, so I think the first part of the drop doesn't really flow well into the second part. At least the transition is just a little bit weird. So let's do some stuff to make that more smooth. So I think it's a matter of transitioning or tying them together with one of the elements that we have in the first section. So it could be this lead once again, but with some variation. Let's just see what we can do here. Maybe no crystallizer this time, and a little more amp. Okay, that's really cool. Now we have this very screechy lead that plays whenever the drop hits. I think that's awesome. Okay, I don't know how I feel about these moving chords now. They're a little bit distracting. So I'll just simplify them a little bit. Nice. Then in the second melodic part, I want the chords to be almost all the way opened up. Let's do some chord variations. Nice. And then what if we do a running bass that's just playing quarter notes the whole entire time, just to tie everything together? We can try it. Okay, so we have this running bass. And I'll add an extra note here, the F sharp that it resolves into. And how does it sound when this F sharp just plays throughout the entire section of this drop? I mean, it's a little distracting. It's all right. I like how it sounds in this section though. So let's take the low pass and maybe just increase this over time once again. So maybe we'll only have it in this section. Can apply a disperser to this. Cool, and then I'll make a variation of the same bass, but instead of just repeating over and over again like this, we'll be able to control the rhythm of it. So I'll switch this to envelope, maybe turn down the rate, somewhere there. And then we can copy the pattern of our main bass and just paste it into that bass. Make this an octave lower. Alright, everything is sounding really good so far. Okay, I think the first part of the drop, and maybe just throughout the entire drop, we really need those elements that tie the whole thing together. That's the key. So let's look up some atmospheres. I don't want to design any right now. Maybe this one right here. I made this a little while ago. Yeah, that's a good layer. Let's do another one. Maybe this one right here. And we'll pitch it down into F sharp minor. Alright, I think the drums need a little bit more texture and detail, so let's go ahead and do that. Maybe I'll look at my signature sound folder and we can grab some cymbals from here. Some offbeat little hi-hats. Let's design this in a unique way. So I'll take this hi-hat. I'm gonna reverse it, make some unique pattern out of it. I'll render this out. Then we can apply a shifter to it just to shift the tone. and then maybe some reverb, as well as a delay. And then delay. Nice, now this is really starting to sound like a full, complete track. We can continue adding texture to these drums. I'll just add a few more layers here. Maybe a double hi-hat right here, except the second hi-hat can have a little bit lower volume. And then we'll duplicate that a few times. Nice, let's add some crashes and rides. So maybe this ride cymbal. And I'll take the same effects from this hi-hat and put them on this ride, just because I want it to be more in the background. But maybe get rid of the delay. Then we can take the same ride and do a reverse one. Nice, let's add a crash. And we can reverse this crash into the second part of the drop, something like this. We might use this in a second drop, and I want to see what other layers we can use from it in the main bass. So maybe we can do a cool reverse effect with this one. And I'll paste this bass in the pattern of the main one. So something like this. Now I'm going to take the same saw from before and then make the final chord, which is the F sharp minor, right? Because that's the key of our song. And I just want this playing in the background of the second part of the drop with the bass, just to add more detail. Maybe we can add a shaper box just to make it more plucky. So I'll select the volume option and shape this to be kind of a pluck. And we can put it on 16th notes. That way it's a little bit more glued to the bass. Maybe an EQ on all of these chords just to clean them up even more. Usually around 8,000, 10,000 hertz is where the noise of the chords is. So we can do a little dip on the EQ. I'll glue these all together with some OTT, and before everything, I'll apply FabFilter Saturn just to bring out more of the character, give it more color. Okay, I want to arrange this drop in like an A, B, A, C type of structure. So we have the A section, the B section with the basses, then back to the A section. And then in the C section, I want a little bit of variation. So maybe an extra layer on the basses or something like that. So let me see what I can find. Maybe this, except we pitch it up into F sharp minor, D minor, D sharp, E, F, F sharp. Put an EQ on it as well to cut out the sub, make some room for the sub bass. Cool, just a little extra layer in the second part. With a little reverb. Alright, Alright, we just need a little bit of extra fills, and then I think this drop is mostly done. I could keep adding to it and adding to it, but I don't want to make it too messy. So let me look for some little drum fills. And maybe half time it. What about this one? Let's chop this up a little bit, make it on beat. And then we can just warp it like crazy. So I'll apply a wormhole and let's see what this does. That's kind of cool. Then we can just clean it up with an EQ. Then maybe layer it with another fill. Okay, I really like this sample. I want to use it in the drum somehow. That sounds awesome. Little ear candies. Okay, I'm honestly just gonna stop the video here. We've done a ton of sound design, a ton of arrangement, and this project is super overwhelming, but I'm gonna finish it. And if you want the project, you can check the first link in the description. I'm gonna give it to all my clients. Alright, thank you so much for watching. This is a little bit of a different one. I haven't really shown this side of the sound design and the production that I do on my videos, so hope you enjoyed it. Once again, if you want the project from this video, as well as work one-on-one with me to take your music to the next level, check the first link in the description. I think you'll like it. Anyway, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.